Hello, all, and welcome to our sixth episode of Data Pancakes. A quick recap of where we left off in the previous episodes. We defined what's a domain, we defined different business personas and how they map into technical roles, both in Microsoft Purview as well as Microsoft Fabric. In the last episode, we showed you the latest Microsoft Purview portal, and as you can see on the screen, we also tried to make things concrete. So we went in with a fictitious company called Oceanic Airlines. We defined two different domains in there, the air flights operations management and the baggage handling management. We defined what we call as the logical layers in there inside Microsoft Purview. So we created these domains, we defined application domains, we defined data domains, and showed you how we could do that mapping between the logical layer and the physical layer, and how these assets are mapped all within Microsoft Purview. In this exercise, we are going to extend on top of this. So inside our Oceanic Airlines fictitious company, we are going to define an OKR, an objective key results, which is a feature within Microsoft Purview. We are going to define how an OKR is defined at organizational level. So the chief data officer at Oceanic Airlines is going to define an organizational level OKR, how that OKR is going to be trickled down to a data owner or a domain owner, how that's going to be defined by the data owner, and how does that OKR go down for a physical implementation onto a data product owner. So we are going to see that in practice to show how it is practically put into use on Microsoft Purview and Microsoft Fabric. With this, I would like to hand it over to Pete.
Thanks, Sarat, for handing it over back to me. So before we start demoing, I would like quickly to discuss Microsoft Purview and the core concepts. So what you see here on the screen is what the new offering offers to you. So in the new Purview version, there will be on the left a Copilot. We have the existing data map, so that's where all the technical collections are managed within. Those collections are for scraping technical metadata and managing all of that source system and application related metadata in the platform. But the whole new experience is mainly at the top. So there you see business domains. We can establish, which you will see also in the demo, business domains, and then within we have a couple of core concepts. So there are business terms, critical data elements. So that's a logical entity, and that, for instance, you can link to physical data assets you scan in the bottom. We can set up processes and workflows, but also those objective key results. So those are defined at a business domain level. One level below, there will be data products. We also demonstrated that in our previous episode. So how to establish a data product and how to link that data product to data we have created in Microsoft Fabric somewhere. And then on the right, there's a data estate health component, and that's for creating overviews, or you could do metadata quality management. So say I have data products and I would like to set a rule that scans all data products, for instance. So do all data products have an owner assigned? If not, I could do reporting on that. So that's where data estate health, for example, is for. And then lastly, there are policies and data quality you can use and set up, and data sharing and use. For this demo, we will now mainly focus on the OKR, so the objective key results. And for that, let's switch my screen so I will open up the Purview environment and walk you through. Okay, about the demo. So you see Microsoft Purview now on the screen. Let's do a bit of a role play. So imagine I'm the chief data officer of that company, fictitious company, Oceanic Airlines. Usually, what chief data officers do is they jointly with the business, they lay out what is the data strategy, what are the key use cases we would like to start with, what are all the objectives. And those use cases and that outcome, for instance, we can measure and track within Microsoft Purview by using those objective key results. So imagine I work closely with a business domain. We have defined the data strategy, and one of the outcomes I agreed upon with the business is we would like to increase the efficiency by making much more use of data. So then how would that work? So say I have here the catalog. So I open data catalog. I go to data management, all my business domains. So here I see all the business domains, the business owners I usually work with. And here, for instance, airport and lounges management. So say we would like to um, define an objective key result. So I could click here on the right, objective key results, and there's nothing yet. So imagine, so I with the business owners decided for we would like to increase the efficiency of the check-in counters. So that's, I think, a clear objective. So we could define that over here. So say this is the objective, increase efficiency of the check-in counters. I could set an owner and as well a target date. So the target date would say end of this year that objectives should be met. So now I have created that high level objective key result. But we can also make it more concrete by adding key results. So that's the next step we will do. And for that, I'm going to make it a bit more specific. So we would like to decrease the allocation delays by 3% in the second quarter of this year. The progress status we set, well, behind because we did not really start it. I could set a goal amount and a maximum. So we set the maximum amount at 100. The goal will be 100 as well, but the progress we did not really start it yet, so I will put that to 0. So here we have created that objective key result, including the key result within. And maybe I also need to update it once more. I also add a bit of more detailed description, because what we also would like to put in here is, well, in order to meet this objective or this key result, we would like to capture the allocation information, and we will use that as input for data product, which we will demonstrate next. And that data product then we will use for a report. So we will also create a report. And then once we spotted the delay, that report will trigger a notification to the business owner. So this is the key result I now have set, and maybe, Sarat, it would be great to hand it over to you and show the real artifact, and then next we can start linking that artifact to this key result here, for instance. So let's hand it over to you, Sarat.
Thank you, Pete. So as you can see, we are inside the Microsoft Fabric portal. Pete, being my data owner, has defined the OKR, that's the objective key results for our domain. As a part of this domain, I am obliged as a data product owner to meet these OKRs. As you can see, I have access to my workspaces, and here I see that it's ALM. So that's basically airport and lounges management. I'm responsible for all check-ins within the Oceanic Airlines company. So that's why it's under the check-ins team. And I am the product owner for team one. Right. So now we are within the workspace. That's my ALM check-ins team one. This is a workspace where my team works. And as you can see, I have three different folders. One is for having my alerts, in this case, an alert for the OKR. So if the check-in info meets the OKR or not, that's basically what you will see later in the demo. The second piece is a folder is data prep. So my data engineers work with notebooks, data flow gen 2 pipelines to actually create the data which is required for reporting. The third folder which we have is data products, and that's something which is more consumable information. That's the check-in info which is used for calculating the OKR in this scenario. So if I get into my data product folder, as you can see, we have three different objects. So I have a lake house, I have the semantic model, and I also have the OKR report. And this is where we will create the alert, as you will see in the next part of the demo. Let's look at the lake house, which represents the check-in info table, which is used for computing the alerts. So if I get into my lake house, I can see that I have a check-in info table. So I have my counter ID, which is representing the check-in counter. I have the flight ID, which represents the flight information. I have the request time, which the time of when the request was made for a check-in counter. we have the approved time on when that request was approved for a check-in counter. And at the end, we have a calculated column, which is a delay, which is basically a flag which says if the allocation has been delayed or not. This is a flag which will be used to compute our alerts. Now let's look at the alert mechanism, right? So if I go into my alerts folder, I can see that we have two data activator items which I have created. One is for my ALM, that's my airport and launches management, alerts for data owners. So in this scenario, we are talking about a check-in information OKR which needs to be met, but there are many more organizational OKRs. So for such kind of OKR alerting mechanisms, I have defined one single data activator item which is called ALM alerts for data owners. And in the next phase, we are going to find out how these alerts can be defined and how my Power BI report is going to be used to trigger these alerts inside my data activity. Now let's take a look at the report which is used to trigger the alert. So if I go into my data products and I look at my OKR report, what I can see in this report is that I have a measure defined that's called OKR info. And this measure is used to identify if there is a delay which has happened. And as soon as a delay has happened, it needs to send an alert. So that's how we are going to proceed. So as you can see, I have a set alert option inside my report. So what I would do is I would click on set alerts. And as you can see, it has automatically detected my measure. This is the only measure available in this, which is called OKR info. And the condition, as you can see, there are many conditions. So in this case, I would say is becomes greater than, and my threshold is 0. So as soon as there is a delay, my flag, which is the OKR info measure, becomes greater than 1, and that needs to trigger an alert. Here, the next piece, you can see there are notification types. So it could either be an email or Teams. We'll also see an option where you could also trigger off a Power Automate. That's something which we will see once we go into the data activator item. The next place is where do you want to save this alert, right? So as you can see, it's on my same workspace. That's airport and launches management, check-ins, and my own team, that is team 1. I have multiple alerts like I showed you earlier. So you have an option to create a new data activator or reflex item. And I had two different alerts set up. One is for my ALM alerts for data owners and then a generic alert. In this scenario, I'm going to select the data owners item. And then I would click create alert, and this immediately starts creating a new alert inside my data owners. Now let's explore the alerts to see what alerts have been created and a bit of a walkthrough through the data activator item. So if I get into my alerts folder, I have my ALM alerts, data owners. And if I go into my data owners item, what I can see here is that I have two different tabs. I have the data tab, which shows me all the information that's representing the check-in info. As you can see here, I have 8 flight informations in here. And you can see the OKR info measure, which is in there, which indicates if there's a delay or not. Here you can see there's an event count, which shows you how many events have come over per hour. And this can be configured up to the last 30 days. There's also a custom window which you can specify. So if you go into my design tab, this is where the alerts have been created. So if I look into my events, that's basically exactly what you saw here. You can see a graphical representation of when these events had occurred. And as you can see, this is the last 7 days. There are properties which represents the columns. As you can see, the flight ID, the delay, the counter ID, the measure, OKR info, and the request time. And this is the trigger which got created from my Power BI, right? So when you went into set alerts and we created the trigger, this is what has been created in the backend. So if you look into the trigger which has been created inside my data activator, you can see that this is basically my measure, and these are representing different occurrences of the measure, and this is the trigger, right? So if this becomes greater than 0, this is the condition which we set, and there are multiple occurrences where this has been met. And you can also see that when did this trigger get activated. So at what point of time have the triggers been sent to the relevant parties? And in this scenario, as you can see, it's you send a mail, but you can send an email or a Teams message or an ICM incident, or it could also trigger a Power Automate. So in this scenario, you can see that it was sent to me and the subject was the composite key, and then the OKR information becomes greater than 0. So this can be altered, right? So I can say the check-in OKR has been impacted. So this would mean like there's actually a subject which goes out to the data owner, which says that the check-in OKR has been impacted. And here I could change this, which says that the check-in OKR was impacted by my composite key, right? So that's basically representing the key which caused the violation. And there's additional messages which can be added to the email or the Teams message. And once I do that, I could save it, right? So this is actually alerting in an automated fashion. So whenever this detects it, it automatically, I would say, save an update. It automatically sends the alert to my email. And that's something which we are going to see in the next part of the demo. This is the alert which has been generated. It's an email which has been sent to the data owner. You can see that this was triggered automatically by a reflex data activator item. The check-in OKR has been impacted. That's the message which we sent inside the alert. And you can also see information, for instance, the flight ID for which the OKR has been violated, and other information which is based on the column. That's the properties which we saw previously. So in this way, you can see how we generated an automated alert based on an OKR violation which has happened. And this is sent to the data owner, right? And Pete gets this message in this scenario, so he can actually go into Purview and alter the OKR scores accordingly. In this example, we see that the trigger had was on an item which happened 6 days back. That's on April 16th, and beyond that, there were no violations of OKR, which means that the OKR is now healthy, right? So that's something which we will see Pete checking in inside the Purview portal in the next part of the demo.
Okay, we are back now in Purview and we are going to finalize things and glue parts together. So as you can see here, I'm back in the business domain overview. You see airport and lounges management. We created that OKR, like you see here. And meanwhile, so while Sarat was doing his part of the job, I already created a data product. So if I would go in there, you see counter check-in time. So that's the name of the data product I created. And if you click on that, you see the description. So small data set that shows the counter ID, flight ID, times, and delay indicator. And this will be used for report. The final step I would like to do here is link it to the actual data assets. So the work, the outcome of Sarat, his work. So let me search for that. I'm going to use this name here. And the lakehouse I would like to select. I think the Power BI dataset also makes it very relevant, and the report itself. So those three items I will add to this data product. Takes a bit of time. But as you can now see here, we also see the actual one lake delta table. So we have added all the detailed artifacts in here. What I could do now, for instance, go back to my business domain, open up the OKR. You see it here. And now we could change the status because we could argue we are done developing that. So I could edit the progress amount and we could say I move this to 100% and on track completed. So here now we see the updated results. What is nice as the chief data officer while using this is if all domains would do it well, I could, as the chief data officer, holistically see all progress across all business domains. So if all business domains would do their work well and create OKRs and would link those OKRs to their data products, for instance, I could holistically, as the chief data officer, oversee all of these different business domains and all of the different data products. If a data product, for instance, isn't there and an OKR lags behind, I could, as the chief data officer, then step in and reach out to the business domain owner, for instance. When progressing forward, my vision would be is you take all of this telemetry, so you take this metadata out. For instance, you could even store this in Microsoft Fabric, build a report on that, and maybe even put triggers. So similarly, like Sarat demonstrated. Then as the CDO, I would receive triggers when the OKRs lag behind, or I could send out triggers or notifications to the actual business owners, showing them, well, your OKRs are not up to standards or data products are below data quality, for instance. So this is the way I would implement this as a chief data officer. I hope you like this part. Next time, Sarat and I, we will go more deeply into the lakehouse medallion architecture, and we would demonstrate you how to layer the data, how to bring it in, and what is needed for that. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time.